Sandra is 54 years old. She is a school administrator. She has spent 29 years building a career, raising 2 kids, and doing everything the responsible adults in her life told her to do. In last October, she sat down at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee and opened her retirement account for the first time in 18 months. The number on the screen was $43,000. She had been earning a steady salary for nearly 3 decades. She had meant to save more every single year, and somehow every single year something more urgent always got in the way. Your brain is biologically programmed to keep you broke. That is not a metaphor, that is neuroscience. Evolution designed your mind to value survival right now over security somewhere far away, which means every decision to save feels at a cellular level like a threat, like you are taking something from yourself. But here is the thing no one tells you. You are not weak and you are not failing. You are operating exactly as your brain was built to operate in a world that no longer exists. What we are going to do today is name the mechanism that keeps people like Sandra trapped in a pattern she cannot seem to break, show you the neuroscience behind why willpower alone never works, and then give you the one cognitive shift that bypasses all of it. Not motivation, not discipline, a shift. To understand why saving feels so hard, you have to understand where your brain is actually living. It is not living in 2025. It is not living in a world of 401ks, compound interest, and mobile banking apps that let you move money with a fingerprint. Your brain is living on the African savanna, roughly 200,000 years ago, in a body designed to solve a very specific problem. How do I survive today? In that environment, hoarding resources for 30 years from now was not wisdom, it was insanity. The future was genuinely uncertain. The mammoth you killed yesterday fed you today. Tomorrow was a problem for tomorrow if tomorrow came at all. The brains that survived were the brains that acted on immediate threats and immediate rewards. Those brains became your brain. That wiring did not go away when grocery stores appeared. It did not go away when pensions were invented. It did not go away when your employer started offering a 401k match. So here you are in 2025 with a 200,000-year-old brain trained to make 40-year financial plans, and your biology is not cooperating, and the world around you is not helping. Because everything in your digital environment was engineered deliberately and precisely to exploit exactly this wiring. Consider what happens when Sandra opens her phone at 10 o'clock on a Wednesday night. She is not shopping, she is just looking. But then she sees a pair of shoes that her algorithm already knew she would like, priced at 30% off with a countdown timer that says the sale ends in 14 hours. She clicks. She pays with a fingerprint. The transaction is over before her conscious mind had time to evaluate it. This is not a failure of willpower. This is a dopamine ambush. Dopamine is not the chemical that makes you feel pleasure. That is a common misunderstanding. Dopamine is the chemical that fires in anticipation of reward. It is the engine of wanting, not of having. And research using functional magnetic resonance imaging has confirmed that viewing desirable products in digital environments activates the same reward circuits in the brain as direct monetary gain. The moment Sandra saw those shoes, her nucleus accumbens lit up. Her rational prefrontal cortex, the part of her brain that would have said, wait, do I actually need this? Is this in the budget? Was already downstream of a chemical event that had happened before she was consciously aware of it. Platforms understand this. One-click purchasing, frictionless checkout, personalized recommendations that predict your desires with uncanny accuracy. All of it is designed to shorten the gap between the dopamine anticipation spike and the transaction. Every millisecond of friction they remove is a millisecond less time for your rational brain to catch up. And on the other side of that equation sits your savings account. Silent. Invisible, offering no anticipation spike, no countdown timer, no confirmation animation, just a number that moves imperceptibly across years. The competition is not even close. In 1997, Harvard economist David Laibson published a study in the Quarterly Journal of Economics called Golden Eggs and Hyperbolic Discounting. What Laibson described was a feature of the human brain that behavioral economists had been studying for decades, but had never named quite so precisely. Here's what it means in plain language. If you ask someone on Monday whether they would like $50 now or $100 in 6 months, most people choose the $50. But if you ask that same person whether they would prefer $50 in 3 months or $100 in 9 months, most people will choose to wait for the $100. The gap between the two options is identical, 6 months in both cases. But in the first version, the $50 is right now, and the brain treats right now with an astronomical premium. Researchers in the 1990s found that subjects were willing to accept annual discount rates of up to 277% when the rewards were close to the present, falling to 63% when both rewards were distant. Your brain applies a radically different value to something happening now versus something happening soon versus something happening later, even when the math is exactly the same. This is hyperbolic discounting, and it is not a quirk. It is the operating system. Think about what this means for Sandra. On Sunday night, she genuinely intends to transfer $300 to her savings account on Friday when she gets paid. She means it. But Friday arrives and the car needs an oil change and her daughter asked her to dinner, and the $300 somehow never makes it to the account. By Friday, the future where the $300 was going has gotten just close enough to present that her brain has repriced it entirely. She is not lying to herself on Sunday. She is telling the truth about what her brain values on Sunday. And then Friday comes and her brain is a different brain. Leibson's research showed that this is why people consistently fail to follow through on savings intentions they genuinely hold. It is not a character flaw. It is a predictable mathematical property of the human discount function. There is a second mechanism at work, and it is the one that explains why even people who understand hyperbolic discounting still struggle to save. In 2009, neuroscientist Hal Hershfield and his colleagues at NYU put research participants in an fMRI scanner and asked them to think about themselves right now, then think about themselves 10 years in the future, then think about a stranger. What they found stopped the field in its tracks. When participants thought about their current selves, the specific region of the brain called the rostral anterior cingulate cortex activated. When they thought about strangers, a different pattern emerged. And when they thought about their future selves, the activation pattern looked far more like thinking about a stranger than thinking about the self. Your future self, neurologically speaking, is not you. It is someone else. Someone you have a vague obligation toward but no particular emotional investment in. Someone you are willing to sacrifice for the same way you might put loose change in a street musician's case. A little occasionally when it is convenient. Hershfield published a follow-up study in the Journal of Marketing Research in 2011 that made this concrete. He showed participants an age-progressed image of themselves, what they would look like at 68 or 72. Then he asked them to make hypothetical retirement allocation decisions. The participants who saw their future selves allocated significantly more of their hypothetical income to retirement than those who did not. In one study, working adults who interacted with their age-progressed avatars allocated 17% of their income to retirement compared to 43% in the control group, not because they felt more afraid, because they felt more connected. Because the stranger became a person they recognized. This is the core of the problem. Saving asks you to sacrifice for someone your brain has categorized as not quite you. Spending gives the real you, the current you, something right now. When you understand this, the failure to save stops being a moral failing and starts being a design problem. Sandra's $43,000 is not a disaster, but it is a number that carries weight when you understand the arithmetic. More than half of working-age Americans have accumulated less than $25,000 in savings. The National Retirement Risk Index, maintained by researchers at Boston College, has shown that the percentage of households who will fall short of their retirement income goals has increased significantly since 2008 and has not recovered. The gap between what people intend to save and what they actually save is not small. It is, over a 30-year career, potentially the difference between financial independence and financial dependence, between choosing to stop working and having no choice. This is not abstract. This is Sandra at 67 still working because the number at 54 never grew the way it needed to, not because she did not care, because her brain, perfectly designed for a world that no longer exists, kept routing her attention to what was urgent and visible and right now. Here is the hard truth before we get to the fix. Willpower is not the answer. Motivation is not the answer. Knowing about hyperbolic discounting does not cure hyperbolic discounting. If information alone changed behavior, every person who ever Googled a diet would be thin. The switch is not disciplinary. It is perceptual. The reason your brain dismisses the future is that the future is abstract. The $300 you do not transfer today is not $300 missing from some vivid, imagined future life. It is a number, an invisible promise, a spreadsheet entry, but your brain responds to vivid, concrete sensory experience. It responds to what it can see, touch, and feel. The dopamine spike from the shoes Sandra bought at 10 o'clock on Wednesday was powerful precisely because the shoes were real. The reward was immediate and specific. The psychological shift is to make the future just as real, not in general terms, not "I want to retire comfortably." That is not a picture your brain can feel. The shift requires high-definition specificity. Where are you? What time of day is it? What does the light look like? Are you at a table on a porch somewhere? Is the coffee hot? Is someone with you? What is the first thing you do that morning that you could not do the Tuesday before you retired? Name it. Hold it. Make it so specific that your brain stops filing it under vague good future things and starts treating it as a destination. Researchers like Hirschfield found that participants who could vividly imagine and identify with their future selves made measurably different financial decisions, not because they were suddenly more disciplined, because saving became emotionally coherent. Putting $300 away stopped feeling like a sacrifice and started feeling like booking a flight to somewhere you already decided you are going. The second part of the shift is structural. Commitment devices work not because they require willpower, but because they remove the moment of decision entirely. An automated transfer that moves money to a savings account the morning your paycheck hits never gives Friday's brain a chance to reprise it. The decision is made on Sunday by the Sunday version of you, and Friday never gets a vote. This is what Leibson's original research argued back in 1997 when he described how people use illiquid assets as self-binding mechanisms. You are not outsmarting your brain, you are designing around it. A third practice that emerges from this research is calendar date framing rather than duration framing. Research by behavioral economists has shown that when people think about a future financial event in terms of a specific calendar date rather than a duration, I retire June 14, 2034 rather than I retire in 9 years, the decision stops being hyperbolic and starts being treated as a concrete plan. The distant event feels closer. The future self feels more present. These are not hacks, they are tools, and like all tools, their value is in the using. Sandra did not close her laptop after she saw that $43,000. She sat with it for a while. She let herself feel what she felt, which was not shame, not exactly, but something close to grief for the years that had already passed. And then she did something small. She opened a new tab and wrote down in more detail than she had ever used before what she wanted the first year of her retirement to look like. Not a fantasy, a plan. A real morning in a real place with a specific version of herself who had made specific choices over the next 12 years. She transferred $50 to a high-yield savings account that same night. Not $300, not the number she thought she should be saving, just the number that felt real and possible on a Tuesday in October with a cup of coffee going cold on the kitchen table. The next morning, she set up an automatic transfer for $200, time to hit the day her paycheck landed. $200, automatic, before Friday's brain could touch it. Your brain is not broken. It is doing exactly what it was built to do. The work is not to defeat it. The work is to show it something real enough to care about. Your future self is not a stranger, not if you make the introduction today. Here is what I need you to do right now. Before you close this video, write down 3 sentences where you are on the first morning of your retirement. What you are doing, who is with you, make it specific, make it real. That is the switch. Everything else follows from that. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications because next week we are going into the mechanics of the savings automation system that does the work even when your willpower does not show up. You do not want to miss that one.